This is in Denver, Colorado. On my original post, some were speculating about how dangerous he is and dangerous things he might have done without confessing them to me. I've been informed by some people on Reddit as well as by some trusted friends of suspicious activities going on in my area, and we think he could be connected. He contacted me about a week ago and asked to hang out. I agreed and have been taking notes on any strange/odd things he says or does. So far, he has acted completely normal, and I think he is working his way up to showing how crazy he truly is. I've contacted law enforcement and nothing ever came of it. So his ex, my new best friend, and I are working on gathering evidence against him. We think he is actually very dangerous to society, and we want to do something about that. Original post. For some context, I've been friends with this dude for a little over 3 years. When I first met him, I thought he was hilarious, kind, intelligent, and overall a really interesting person. Everyone thought that of him, and they still do actually. He's loved by his peers and is a very well-known member of our community. This is important. We didn't become best friends till a few months into our friendship. One day we were joking around and we had a genuine connection with each other. I've never had such a good time with someone before. It was one of those moments when you're with someone and you silently laugh and can't breathe. It was fun. Whenever I first met him, his ex-girlfriend warned me of him. I was pretty close to her, but I still couldn't believe anything she said about him. I assumed she was a vengeful ex. She claimed that he went far past her sexual boundaries, was unusually cruel to her at times, and one time attempted to drown her. She said they went swimming and he put all of his weight on top of her and kept holding her underwater. Once she'd come up, he would do it again and again. They broke up after that. I ignored this and, as I said earlier, chalked it up to her having an extreme dislike for him. One day he brags to me about how he got away with relentlessly bullying this kid in high school. He even tried to talk him into hurting others, but he gave up after getting bored. He thought this was hilarious and he was laughing while telling me about it. I was very disturbed by it, and I've never seen him act so cruel before. Another time we went hiking together. This was his idea. The trail we were at was very popular, so there were a lot of people there. This one woman stood out to him, I guess, and he kept commenting on how gorgeous he was. She was with a man who I guess was her husband or boyfriend, and I just thought the whole thing was strange. Afterwards, we went out to eat inside of this plaza, and he guided the conversation to the topic of sex. We each slowly opened up about what we liked, and it was pretty normal until he brought up his true interests. He said he fantasized about kidnapping and murdering a girl. He told me in detail how he was basically wanting to torture some lady and commit necrophilia along with some other messed up stuff. Once we got done eating, he kept joking about going back to that girl and doing all that to her. He brought it up numerous times throughout the day, and it was apparent he wasn't joking. It was more of a suggestion at that point. I distanced myself from him after that, and kind of drifted apart anyways as we got separate jobs and didn't see each other much. I went to a party one night and guess who was there? You know who. At the beginning, I mentioned how everybody loves him. He's an active member of the community and even goes to church. Plus his new occupation adds to his facade. He started talking to me and he seems normal as per usual. I thought he changed because of how convincing he was. I'm sure you think you could tell, but I'm telling you this guy could easily fool you. He told me how he joined the local police department. Yep. He's a cop now, and I was shocked by that. He always mentioned wanting to join law enforcement and would never say he had bad intentions. Maybe he was genuine about wanting to help people, or maybe it was just a cover. Who knows? But either way, he definitely shouldn't have that authority. We started talking again and we hung out a few times. He seemed completely normal and kind, so I assumed everything was alright until he mentioned his cousin's death and talked about him so coldly and didn't seem to feel sad about it at all. He also spoke of his current girlfriend in a detached manner. During our friendship, he told me how he abused his dog and killed others when he was younger, and recently he bragged about kidnapping a sex worker and scaring her. Anytime I asked him what he meant by scaring, he'd become hostile and refused to go into further detail. He's always loved going into detail, so I'm curious about why he isn't about this all of a sudden. On New Year's, we went to a bar and he nearly killed a dude. He literally beat the guy till he was choking on his own blood and didn't stop till I said the poor guy could die. I tried to stop him physically, but he's obviously a lot stronger than I am. He turned around with this blank expression on his face and casually went back into the conversation. I've reported him to the police anonymously, but I still haven't heard anything back from them. I'm convinced he's a psychopath or something along those lines. I grew up in a cookie-cutter suburban housing neighborhood in Southern California. One of the ones in the early 2000s that literally every single house was the same plan and looked exactly the same on the outside. I moved there from the city of Los Angeles in middle school and hated it. By the time I was in 10th grade, I had left school and I was in a homeschool program that gave me a lot of free time. The town felt cultish to me due to its extreme religious citizens, Mormon and Christian, because I'd never been exposed to intense religion before. Note that I have nothing against these religions, it was just far so removed from my background that I was out of my element. The event I'm describing takes place in 2013. My house was located on the last lot of the development, and beyond us were 100 beautiful old oak trees, hiking trails, and natural wildlife. I spent a lot of time climbing trees and playing in nature. I had a favorite tree that I would walk past to get to the center of town often, and one day I decided to build a tree house and a tire swing. It was right off of a trail that was very popular to get to schools and other places, so I thought it would be used a lot and was happy to share it with anybody passing by. I built the tree house in about 2 weeks' time and then started on the tire swing. When I was setting up the swing, I stepped on this patch of land that was extremely spongy. This meant it was hollow and something was probably buried underneath. I dug and found this Ziploc plastic sandwich bag with yellow/white crust inside. I didn't open it and thought that it was trash that had food inside of it at one time, so I put it in my bag and threw it away at my house. The next day, I returned to finish my project. Again, I stepped on some more hollow ground and dug some more. I found some weird stuff. I dug for a while and found another Ziploc plastic sandwich bag with the same stuff as before. The bag looked too new to be so buried far into the earth, so I knew it had to have been buried. I tossed it aside and kept digging. I then found a plastic sealed bag of pages with writing on them. Water had leaked into the bag so the ink was smeared, but it just looked like pages from a small child's diary with scribbles and pictures. Odd. I kept digging, and then I found another bag with 1980s pornography that had been printed out from an old website. The watermark said 2000, but there was water damage on that. I then found a bag with old family photos that looked to be around the same era of 2000 to 2002. The photos were of a white family and all normal photos of people at a dinner table, a birthday party, and C-word. Same children, 2 girls and a boy, same mom and dad. I kept digging and found another bag of that crusty white/yellow stuff in a bag. Under that bag were some children's homework sheets, and under that was another white crusty bag. I had no idea what to do with them. Obviously didn't want these things. There were only a few photos of the pornography, and they all had some sort of water damage because they were on computer paper. The only thing that was untouched were the family photos because they were film prints, so I reburied them. I really didn't know what to do. So a few weeks pass and I visit my new fort and have fun. I see other people have come and gone, but nothing is disturbed. One day I visit and my whole fort is ruined and destroyed. I was saddened, but I chalked it up to just other teenagers my age messing with me or kids just doing really stupid stuff. My swing was still up, so I walked over to go and sit on it and my foot sunk into the ground. I brushed some leaves away and saw a plastic bag. I picked it up and inside the same exact Ziploc plastic bag as the other items was semen, clear as day, and a lot of it. I was so disgusted that I flung it away from me. It wasn't warm but still in liquid form. I dug a bit with my hands and found more family photos than before, from the same era and same family. I felt extremely weirded out and had this gut feeling of just badness. Nothing really made sense. I put the stuff back and walked in a different direction from my fort and saw a guy in his 40s by himself walking towards my fort behind me. I felt afraid because we were hidden from the houses. The majority of the people I saw on the trail were kids my age or younger because all there was to do was climb trees and build kid forts in the woods. He ducked into my fort and I walked further in the opposite direction. I waited for a while, but it was getting dark and the only path back to my house was to pass through my fort, and I was afraid he was still there. I did it anyway, and sure enough, he was there. He had his penis out and was masturbating. He made eye contact with me and carried on, and I ran as fast as I could to my house. I called the police and reported that a man had exposed himself, but nothing else happened. I have not gone back since. A few years later, the area was burned down. They couldn't pin it on anybody, so they said it was teenagers smoking cigarettes. Okay, so this is my first time submitting a story. Sorry for how long it is, and hopefully it's not too hard to follow. This happened about 8 years ago. This is about my friend. I will call her A. I've known her since I was 15. We were co-workers for about 5 years, and when I turned 18, we became roommates. Her boyfriend at the time also lived with us, So A was always kind of different. She was very religious and always talked about God and struggled with partying or smoking weed without feeling guilty afterwards. We would throw house parties. Nothing crazy. Just a group of us playing beer pong, drinking, and maybe a little weed. Nothing ever crazy happened, but literally after every time, she would tell me that she can't do this anymore and that she needs to focus on a relationship with God. Yet the parties were usually her idea, but I got so used to her being like that I just thought that was her personality. So about a year into living together, her boyfriend decided to break up with her. They'd been together since high school and he's about 3 years older than her. So when this happens, I feel like this is where the chaos starts. She started to see a therapist and a psychologist because she went into a depression. I'm not sure what doctor decided to put her on Adderall, but she tells me she'd been diagnosed with depression and ADD. I didn't really think much of it because I've known a few people that take the same medication and it seemed to help them. After a few months of her being on this medication, she dropped a lot of weight and becomes way more spontaneous and does things that are out of character for her. She became very promiscuous. She would drive to San Diego, which is almost 3 hours away from where we live, to have one-night stands. It wasn't until a few months after that I noticed something really off. She started sleeping with one of our coworkers and got oddly jealous if anyone would just talk to him. We all worked in the same department, so we all kind of had to talk to each other. I asked him if he could grab something from the back, and I turned around and she was staring at me with this angry blank stare and said, "I know what you're doing." Me. What? Because I had literally no idea what the heck she was talking about. I see the way you're looking at him. I know what you're trying to do. Are you serious right now? Please tell me you're joking. I see it, you can't lie to me. I know what you're trying to do. I won't let it happen. By this time I was so mad I left work and went home, because she was 100% serious. It didn't freak me out as much as it pissed me off. I've known this person for years. We live and work together. How could she think of me like that, let alone treat me that way? So after that, things got so bad with her, always accusing me of any little things. One minute she talked to me friendly, then the next accused me of being in her room going through her stuff. Eventually I had to move out, and she went back to live with her grandma. We still worked together, but I asked to work different shifts if possible. Then I didn't see her for almost 6 months. She just didn't come back to work. Nobody would tell me why or anything that happened. It was almost a year when I got a Facebook message from her asking me if she could see me and talk. So much time had passed, I wasn't angry, more so worried. I wanted her to be okay. So by this time I live with my now husband, so I tell her she can come by the apartment. When she showed up, I could hardly recognize her. She gained a lot of weight and looked like she let her hygiene go. Not to the point where she looked homeless or anything, just very noticeable, especially from how she used to look. So I knew she had gone through something. She didn't want to come in, so she went for a walk. And she began to tell me what happened. She said that she had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. It was drug-induced by the Adderall. I guess it started when she went on a hike with her family. Said her dad turned into a demon and was going to kill her. She tried to run away, but her family had to restrain her and call the cops. They had held her for 72 hours. She said it was like God gave her the ability to see who is a good person or bad, and that she sees them as demons or as people. She told me she takes medication for it now and she's going to this Bible study group that has really helped her. I told her that's great and I'm always here and I can't imagine what she's gone through. So we start to hang out a few times after that. I go to her apartment. It was like assisted living for people with mental disorders, once or twice a week to hang out and talk. I never thought of her as dangerous because, well, she was on her meds and from what I've heard and read, people with schizophrenia aren't usually violent at all. Plus, she seemed somewhat well. After about a month of hanging out, she keeps trying to get me to go to this Bible study group. I tell her that I'm not really interested in all of that, but she eventually becomes ridiculously persistent, stopping by my apartment randomly trying to get me to go. So this is where I slowly stopped coming by because it was like every time we hung out, she always brought it up and just wouldn't let it go. A week goes by. I don't really talk to her or answer her calls, and if I did, I just come up with an excuse to why I couldn't come. A part of me felt bad, but it was like something was telling me to just distance myself for a bit. The following Friday, my mom calls me and asks me if I read the newspaper. She tells me that A is in the newspaper. The night before A's mom stopped by our apartment, I guess she was very upset and disoriented. Her mom tried to calm her down but couldn't, so she tried to call the police because she was getting more aggravated and aggressive. A ends up chasing and stabbing her mom 7 times. Come to find out later from her family that she had stopped taking her medication because God told her she didn't need them, she said. She thought her mom was trying to kill her and was a demon. Her mom actually survived and was able to make it to the neighbors. I guess the police found wandering around her apartment complex with the knife still in her hand. They said she wouldn't talk to anyone and just had this look on her face like she wasn't there. She didn't struggle or say anything. To think, if I didn't distance myself that easily, it could have been me. The thought of her being violent never entered my mind. Just a really terrifying and honestly heartbreaking story. It's almost as if I had to grieve for her because who she used to be no longer existed, and knowing who she was, she just didn't deserve that kind of life. This story comes from a time in my life when I was in a really bad place. I had been misdiagnosed with BPD since I was a teenager when I was actually bipolar, so when my first full-on manic episode came along, nobody in my family knew what was happening. They thought I was on some sort of drug or something because I went long enough without treatment that the mania developed into psychosis. I was really delusional and sick, like completely out of my mind, so a few of the details here are fuzzy, but I definitely have a very clear memory of this moment. Ever since I was a teenager, I had experienced psychogenic seizures. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's basically a pseudo seizure caused by extreme distress or anxiety. It's basically how my body reacts in crisis mode instead of the fight or flight instinct in really high stakes situations. So my parents called an ambulance since they had never seen me have so many consecutive episodes at a time, and the EMTs show up while my brain is pretty much on fire with mental illness. It was the most vulnerable I've ever been. A couple of EMTs put me in the ambulance, where 2 other EMTs were sitting in the back. One of them was really nice to me and tried to do the best he could to soothe me. The other guy was this white frat-looking dude with a buzz cut, and he was just frowning, staring at me, not saying or doing anything. I guess he was more like glaring. Whatever. He was the last thing on my mind. We arrived at the hospital, and the nice guy and the frat guy pushed me into a holding room in the hospital, while one of the others goes off in the hospital. I guess to figure out what to do with me. The white dude finally speaks out and says to the nice guy that he can go ahead, that he can handle this. The nice guy looked unsure, but he seemed younger and more inexperienced than the fratty EMT, so he just nodded and left. The guy then turned his attention back to me, and I felt his eyes shooting daggers at me. He gets up close and grabs my wrist, which causes a huge spike in anxiety, so I start convulsing again. He tightened his grip by a lot, like it left red marks, and I tried to tell the first person I saw after this event in the hall what he had done, but he insisted that I did it to myself, and who's going to trust the crazy chick, right? And held my arms down. Then he got all up in my face, and his voice got real low, but really firm and commanding. He said, "Listen, bitch, I know you're faking it. Everybody knows. You aren't doing your parents any favors by causing a scene, so just stop it." I literally felt his spit on my face. I didn't know what to do, so I screamed, "You need to work on your bedside manner," as loud as I could, and shortly after, a nurse and my dad came in, and the guy backed up and speed walked out. I remember somebody at the door trying to stop him, but he just kind of shouldered him off and stormed away, like he was mad. I never saw him again after that. I had a few more freaky experiences at that hospital psych ward, but that was the one I remember most vividly. My mom worked at Walmart, and she was being harassed by an employee. Guy was your typical Billy badass who offered my mom to whoop my brothers and me and kick us out when he learned she was widowed and my brothers and I were still struggling to find work. This probably would have been already a bad gamble on his end since my older brother and I worked in the woods frequently and did lots of heavy moving for people. He would often make comments that creeped my mom out. I told her to report his ass to her boss if he failed L&I and the police. One night, my mom let me borrow her truck and I dropped her off and went to pick her up later. We were going to do a range day with my friends and teach a friend of mine's fiance gun safety and how to shoot. I'm also a licensed concealed carrier. I rarely carry anything other than hunting or going to the range. I pull up to pick my mom up and I see the dude she was talking about. He was smoking and looking at us as he stood. My mom then handed me money and told me to grab a few things. I threw my jacket on to cover up my holster and walked in. I noticed he immediately followed me around, staring at me and snarling, like as if he were about to fight. Every section was there, so I decided to move through a few others. I talked to a young female associate, some BS boondoggle, to see his reaction. He was clenching something and staring. The associate felt uncomfortable as she kept looking at him. I moved and he followed until I cut off to the checkout. I got my things and left, and as soon as I got back, my mom unlocked the door. Meanwhile, I was burning up as my jacket of choice was my heavy Carhartt, so I was unzipping it, and my mom looked worried as I heard footsteps coming. I turned to see him walking at me. He sees the holster and he stops. "Excuse me, can I help you?" I inquire, kind of forgetting I got my holster on still. He zips over to this rusty truck and gets in and waits. My mom is very scared. I see his cigarette light up and he's waiting. My mom immediately tells me, "Go to the passenger side." I sit down and pull my phone out. I'm ready to call the police. My mom starts driving. He immediately cuts us off and drives us down the road. We saw his truck on the side of the highway as we drove by. My mom immediately floored it and had me pump gas for her when we got to the station. I left my gun in the car for her as she locked the doors. Unbeknownst to my mom, I called the night manager and told her about the aggressive, threatening employee. He was shocked, and I made it clear that if I see that employee again, or if I'm followed or harassed, I'm suing the store and its management for allowing dangerous behavior in their store by employees. This was his final straw since Walmart managers let sexual harassment slide, but if it's employee on customer harassment, the employee is dropped. I got back in the pickup and my mom drove until we got home. The next morning, I filed a follow-up complaint on this guy to the staff, and they said, "He's fired and banned from the property and threatened legal charges." My mom came back and seemed happier. She informed me that her creep got fired. My mom honestly should have sued their ass the moment they failed to act or report.